Lila was a spirited 12-year-old with a strong sense of independence. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, were loving but firm, often guiding Lila with rules they believed would help her grow into a responsible adult. However, Lila saw these directives as stifling constraints. One evening, the family gathered for dinner. Mr. Peterson reminded Lila of her homework, asking if it was complete. Lila shrugged and said she'd do it later, dismissing his concern with a nonchalant wave of her hand. Mrs. Peterson then asked if Lila had fed the family dog. Lila's eyes flickered with defiance. She hadn't, and it slipped her mind intentionally. Max sat in the corner, looking up with sad eyes. Despite repeated requests from her parents, Lila chose to ignore them, preferring to scroll through her phone instead. The tension at the dinner table grew palpable, and the meal ended in uneasy silence. That weekend, the Petersons planned a family outing to the local museum. They thought it would be an educational experience for Lila, who had shown some interest in art. But Lila had other plans. She had secretly arranged to meet her friends at the mall. On the morning of the outing, she faked a headache and convinced her parents to let her stay home. As soon as they left, she grabbed her bag and snuck out. At the mall, Lila felt a rush of excitement. She relished the freedom, laughing and chatting with her friends, oblivious to the time. Meanwhile, the Petersons enjoyed the museum, wishing Lila was there to share in the experience. When they returned home, they were shocked to find the house empty. Panic set in as they called her phone repeatedly, with no answer. Hours later, Lila returned, her joy from the day quickly dissolving into dread as she saw her parents' worried faces. The confrontation that followed was intense. Mr. Peterson's voice wavered with a mix of anger and fear as he spoke about the dangers of her actions. Mrs. Peterson had tears in her eyes as she expressed her deep disappointment. Lila, realizing the gravity of her actions, felt a pang of guilt she hadn't anticipated. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at home was chilly. It wasn't until Lila saw Max looking at her with those same sad eyes that she truly reflected on her behavior. She began to understand that her parents' rules were not meant to control her, but to keep her safe and guide her. One evening, she approached Mr. and Mrs. Peterson with a heartfelt apology. She promised to be more considerate and responsible, realizing that trust was something that had to be earned. The Petersons, relieved and hopeful, embraced their daughter, setting the path for a new chapter of mutual respect and understanding in their household.